So what's the meaning? What's the reason for all of this? Once you've figured it out, there's no more searching. There's no reason to ask the question anymore. There's just the unfolding of the reason. Callie always wants to come chat as soon as I start making a video. Yeah, go away. Just. No, you can't jump up here right now. Um, so we're lacking reason, we're lacking meaning. What's happened is that we're stuck here. For some reason, human consciousness thinks that if we can figure this out, well, all of these, right? These are all, no, you can't jump up here. That if we figure these out, this will somehow just pop out, I guess. But without knowing the why of all of this, why does this occur? Why? What is the reason, the purpose, the meaning of this? Then we're completely lost. It's like playing a game without knowing the reason for the game. So let's say that this could be the rules of the game. We're figuring out what the game entails, what the rules of the game are, but we don't know the reason why we're playing the game. So how do you know if you're winning or you're losing at life itself? Like, what's the guide? It's not, if you knew all of this, which you can't, that wouldn't necessarily lead to this. Maybe finding out that you can't know all this leads to this. But if you're playing a game and you don't know what the purpose of the game is, well, you'll just keep playing the game with no reason. There's no meaning to it. So yes, religion has failed, all because it's thought. It's all metaphor, right? So religion is metaphor. You can't explain directly the why. Well, I have, as bluntly and succinctly as I possibly can. But then people keep going back to this. It's like, because they can't accept the why. It's hard to accept that everything you've ever done and everything that you do is as unsubstantial as a scene in a movie or the playing of a video game. So I would suggest that these haven't done any fucking good, because look at the state we're in. Like, just look at this objectively. Don't try to spin it into what you think it is. Just look at it. We're a complete freaking mess. There's nothing natural about anything that humans do. And if you sat in a chair and just tried to be happy, just do people even know what the feeling of happiness and perfect contentment is? It's comfortably numb, isn't it? As long as we keep getting our crack, the sensations, the thoughts and the sensations, then, well, we can just forget about the why, right? But if you sit, see, the guide isn't the cognitive answers or models of this, true and false, or true and false are not the guides. Suffering and happiness are the guides. And when you know the why, then you no longer suffer. But you can't get to the why unless you transcend all of this. This doesn't work because, especially, this is all moving. All of this is relative. There's nothing in the world, in this physical world, that is stationary. Everything everything's moving. So that's the theory of relativity, is that everything's relative to each other in the physical realm. So how does any of these measurements make any sense at all? They don't. They're all relative to each other. So you're like trying to measure a circle. Where does the circle end and where does it begin? Well, you're just making that up. You're just arbitrarily picking a place. How do you measure one thing? Well, you don't. So what I'm getting at is the base of all this has to be stationary. It has to be unchanging. The frame of reference to all of this is this. It's the stillness. It's the unchanging. So once you get to the stillness and you get comfortable experiencing effortless thought, you have to get to effortless. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I'm not. So find that which is always the same. You will find the more that you get to. So the thoughts are always different, right? Every single thought that pops up is different than the thought before it, but it's kind of a fractal. It just fractals on. You have the initial thought, and then you can just go on tangents probably forever from that originating thought. But where does that originating thought originate from? Well, it originates from the stillness, from that which does not change, which is always the same. And the quality of the awareness you will find is always the same. the quality of the awareness is always. It's unchanging. So that must be the frame of reference. You can't have a frame of reference that's moving. It's so, but the mind wants complexity, right? So the mind will automatically reject something that suggests that you should stop mind. It's that simple. So let the guide be happiness and suffering. If you're discontent, that means you haven't found the why yet. And once you found the why, then everything has meaning. Every single thing that you do has meaning. And whether you like it or not, the meaning is the purpose of the game, is to find conclusion of the game. You enjoy the game so much that, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing saying that you can't just keep going on. But the problem is that when people start suffering, oh my, the world is an unfair place, and oh, woe is me, and please God, come save me. No, if you're going to play the game, then you have to suck it up. And every high has a low, every up has a down. So if you're willing to pay that price, then go for it. But don't whine and bitch and complain when there's suffering involved. You can't have just all ups. That's what humanity's trying to do. It's trying to just swing up. When you're on a swing, you can't just swing up. And the more you try to artificially push that swing and keep it up, the higher it goes, the bigger the swing back is going to be. It's the law. It's the rules of the game. So there you go. I mean, and humanity's going to be in a lot of woe is me. And it's because they don't know the why. So if you sit in a chair and just, like, why is it that we don't think that being able to control your own thoughts and stop your mind is a big deal? It's not a big deal that you can't stop thinking and you have no control of the thoughts that enter your mind. And it's like saying, it's like having Tourette's and saying, oh, well, it's not a big deal, I'll just get along with it. Like, if you have no control over your body, that's probably a big deal, right? Even if it's an illusory control. But the fact that we don't have control over our minds, no one really brings it up, right? Because that would put all of this out of business. That they wouldn't have jobs anymore, or they wouldn't have, their why would be completely different, and everything would just shut down. And that's the game. That's it. This is all to shut down. And again, it's not, but we think it's nothingness, right? We're afraid that it's just, there's nothing, but you would have to be there to experience the nothing. So that's the purpose, is to realize when you find out the why, all of this either becomes irrelevant or understood is irrelevant. So again, why is this? Why were you born? Why is there suffering? Why can't you just sit in and of yourself and be completely self-fulfilled, self-sustained, and happy and content? Because if you're not content, that is the path. You're off the path. The path is contentment. But you're so distracted by all your infinite supply of crack or heroin or whatever substance you want, the screen, right? Thoughts, that you don't, it's the addict has no problem as long as the source of the addiction is readily available. But in the death state, what happens then? Well, you're gonna freaking panic, and like a heroin addict, you'll do anything to get your hit, to get another hit, and pop, there comes another world. And you'll end up just not knowing the why and starting all over again. You have to look at this like your life and the associated karma like a massive ocean tanker. And you can't just stop one of those things. As much as you'd like to think, oh, well, the time of my death, I'll just, ask God for forgiveness or some freaking thing, and oh, everything will be fine. Everything that I want or I am going to or I ... anything past I am ... is generating karma. So all of these plans that you've had, everything that you've got in motion that you think, oh, I got to do this today, and in this week I need to do this, and by this month I need to do this, and my 5-year plan is all this. That's all the giving speed to that tanker. And you have to let go of that stuff so the tanker can slow and finally stop, because it's the stopping. This is how you get out of this, is you have to stop. It's like trying to, let's say this physical world is basically a film in a can, right? Like an actual physical film that you put in a projector and put it on the screen. Well, realizing that you're not the character, we're at the state in human consciousness where we realize this is kind of what's going on, is that we're not the character, the physical character on that film, in each frame of that film, that's not who you are, and you know that. But it's what we're trying to do is like go faster than the speed of light, and then you can break through, right? Break out. If you can just go faster than the speed of light somehow, we can escape this realm, right? But it's impossible. It's literally impossible for for a two-dimensional character on a freaking film. All it can do is be projected onto another two-dimensional surface, right? It can't just leap into the physical three-dimensional realm and say, oh, well, this is the real me. So you can't break out through action, the action of going faster than the speed of light, as a metaphor. But that's what science is trying to do, right? So the metaphor is that you are already the singularity. You are the frame of reference of all of this. You are the frame of reference that from which all of this is compared to, is measured against. The unmoving, the singularity, black hole, whatever you want to call it. So instead of trying to get by some sort of a doing, you can escape by some sort of doing, whether it's some sort of spiritual hokey pokey routine, or taking some drug, or killing yourself. It's some sort of a doing, right? No, that's impossible. You can't. So you have to realize that the whole thing is just a film. And you do that by stopping. Not by a doing, by a being. And then you're content, and you realize that nothing done in this world is substantial or fulfilling. Only the self fulfills, self sustains, self fulfilling, self sustaining, the self. So once you realize that the why of all of this, then nothing in this matters. It doesn't matter if you piss off your spouse. It doesn't matter if your coworkers, like if all of your friends, if you just end up sitting alone in a chair, that's the purpose. It's all vertical. Everyone else is horizontal movement, right? You just need to transcend. None of it matters. It's like, once you realize the why, none of this matters. The only thing that matters is concluding the game, because that's the why. Like, oh, what would happen if I lose my job? What would happen if I lose my family? What would happen if I just actually attended to this and not paid attention to the physical realm at all? Well, then you'd win. That's the trick of Maya, is convincing you that this matters. So yeah, it's not gonna be easy. This is why there's been a handful of people throughout all of humanity that's been fully enlightened. And we have religions based upon these handful of people, is because it's fucking difficult. But one would expect the game, the labyrinth, the mystery that God has created to be the most difficult. Like, I remember playing these video games where you thought, oh, well, I'm done now. Oh, no, there's still another chapter. Oh, no, it's still. But just think of that is this, and it goes on for infinity. I tell you this, if you actually saw behind the veil and saw the operation of this and who you think you are and all the past and the identity of your name here and everyone else's identity, if you saw what was actually happening to make that appear, you would drop everything and say, I want the fuck out. I want the fuck out, because you've been duped. You're in a state of ignorance, and when you realize, when that ignorance, when that is disillusioned, it's nothing is as it appears. Your name here does not exist. It's just a very convincing magic act. And the stillness is the real teaching.